Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 16, Episode 134. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us this Monday. Steelers Nation. Dave exiting rookie minicamp, got several of those draft picks under contract and getting ready for OTAs that begin in just about 1 week. So a good amount to talk about after the weekend. Dave, how you doing?
All right. Happy Monday to you. And yeah, we got a live stream later on tonight. It's been 2 weeks since our last one, so people can find that on the Alex Kozora YouTube channel. We'll be getting started at 7 o'clock Eastern time and fielding everybody's questions and probably talking a little bit about what came out of rookie minicamp over the weekend there. So, yeah, we got a few things to talk about. We'll talk, I think you and I will go a little bit deeper maybe into some Keanu Benton comparatives later on in this show. And as you mentioned in the top there, I think we've got more than half of the draft class signed now at this point, right?
Right. 6 of the 10 are officially under contract. They are Caden Weegan, Gabriel Rubio, Robert Spears-Jennings, also Riley Nowakowski, Jennings Dunker, and Dalen Everett. So the only ones left to sign are Maxi Honachor, Jeremy Bernard, Drew Aller, the top 3 selections, and also Eli Heidenreich, the 7th round pick. All those will get done before training camp. The CBA, the rookie slotting of the contracts, make these things pretty copy and paste, cut and dry. As you've mentioned, there may be some weight on Bernard given just guarantees and kind of the line in the sand in terms of where those contracts go for second rounders. But overall, nothing to worry about, not like how it used to be, but getting a lot of these guys under contract during rookie minicamp.
Yeah, I think maybe one of the more notable things when it comes to, and look, yeah, the Eli thing should get done. Eli Heidenreich contract should get done really, really quick here. So that will be another one off the board. Then that would leave the Ihanichor, Jeremy Bernard, and then Drew Aller left at that point. An interesting note, we've talked a little bit about Jeremy Bernard and how he might ultimately end up being the last draft pick signed. I think over the weekend, the New York Jets got D'Angelo Pons signed to his rookie deal, and he was drafted 3 spots after Jeremy Bernard. I haven't looked for an update to see how boxed in maybe Bernard might be at this point, but it's always good to start seeing these guys boxed in a little bit, especially when it comes to these kind of questionable guys, particularly second-round guys at this point, and the guarantees that the big thing we're watching is just how much of maybe the 4th year of the rookie contract gets fully guaranteed there. So the fact that D'Angelo Pons is already off the board, and once again, I think he was drafted 50th overall, and Jeremy Bernard was 47th overall. Got him a little boxed in on that side, so I think it'll be interesting to see at the start of this week how many more of these second rounders get signed, and if that might ultimately speed up the signing of Jeremy Bernard as he gets boxed in a little bit more. So Ihanichor, I don't think that's going to take all that long because of that being a fully guaranteed contract. You do kind of wonder about the quarterbacks drafted in the first 3 rounds and how that ends up impacting everything. But once again, I don't think it's going to take long on Aller, and I'll be surprised if Bernard is not the final one that inks his deal. But at least we went into the weekend knowing saying that they were going to have most of their bottom end of their draft class signed. So I would expect the Eli Heidenreich news to come out here fairly soon. And then I guess the other thing we're waiting to see, maybe to open up this week here, is of the tryout players that the Steelers had in for the rookie minicamp. If one or two of those guys end up getting signed, and most notably maybe a punter that we talked about the other day. But Shorten, I bet those tryout guys were saying, "No, screw Mother's Day. Let's
One more day.
yeah, let's go another day here." But that ultimately didn't happen. So we'll wait and see if any signings come out of the tryout guys.
Mike McCarthy cutting rookie minicamp short by 1 day instead of going Friday through Sunday. They just practiced Friday and Saturday. So that was McCarthy's decision to give those guys a day off. But as you said, the tryout guys probably wanted to have as many reps as possible. So we've seen Pittsburgh sign some of those tryout guys earlier, the week following rookie minicamp, today, tomorrow. So we'll see if something comes through. Would not be surprised if a punter, Ryan Stonehouse in particular, got the nod, but whoever looked the best in those two practices may get a roster spot. Hopefully we'll have some clarity by Wednesday's show. Should mention also the jersey numbers. We talked about the rookie draft picks getting their jersey numbers, and we were poking a little fun at Caden Weegan. We're in the 42, and he posted on IG. He promises he'll have a new number by the regular season. Once that roster goes from 91 down to 53, he's going to change digits. And so Weegan's career has been saved, Dave.
All right. What'd you say? Crooked numbers? I don't know if I get that reference related to kind of the position and all like that. But a lot of people get up in arms about the jersey numbers, and all I have to say about that is what I said the other day: is don't rush out and buy any just yet, other than maybe a Hanachor overall. But pay close attention to the pro shop, the Steelers pro shop page, and if those jerseys come officially go on sale there, or maybe Fanatics or wherever else people buy their license jerseys at there, once they become official, it's hard to imagine that they would sell a number of a player that ultimately gets changed by the start of the season there. So that's all I got to say about jersey numbers, but I know several are excited to hear that that there's going to be at least a jersey number change there with Weegan.
Yeah, crooked number, like a pitcher with an ERA in the sevens. It just doesn't look right. It doesn't look good. And 42, not the ideal number for Weegan, so he'll get that corrected whenever the time comes, whenever more numbers become available. All right, Dave, let's go on to rookie minicamp. And obviously, there's only so much you can glean from it, only so much that we know. We heard players talk on Saturday. Mike McCarthy also speaking to the media on Saturday. We know it's just the first step of many. They're installing, they're just getting some reps, they're getting acclimated to what the NFL practices, what it looks like, the format, some of the adjustments. So any notable takeaways from the weekend, Dave?
I'll give you kind of in rank. I only have like three, I guess, kind of takeaways overall from everything that came out in the couple of days of the rookie mini camp here, and I'll kind of give you a rank of notable, at least in my head here. And I'll start. And we sort of went into the weekend with the team only having the one quarterback for the rookie minicamp, that of course being Drew Aller. A little bit of a change overall from what we've seen over the years. Normally they carry at least two quarterbacks for rookie minicamps, even if one of them ends up being a tryout player. I know a couple of people have asked about, well, why wasn't Will Howard there? Well, Will Howard's was not eligible for the rookie minicamp. So that's the starters there. But I the main takeaway that I have here is they only decided to have Drew Aller as the only quarterback here. And then on top of it, I think something that Mike McCarthy had said there is they had, I guess, a session on what day would that have been? Saturday, where they went, kind of rapid fire of, I think, 30 something snaps there to kind of
35 snaps, he said, a team drill.
Okay, 35 of team drill to kind of stress, I guess, Drew Aller to some degree. So I thought that was notable there. And then kind of parlaying in some things that Mike McCarthy had said. And you have a video and a post on this today, kind of goes back to the quarterback school of how they want to have a kind of a starting point with all their quarterbacks. Mike McCarthy in particular there, where they shoot these guys from different angles and different viewpoints there, and basically have a starting point. And he mentioned about how they've already accomplished that this offseason with Will Howard and Mason Rudolph. And yeah, so I think just a main starting point would be that, yeah, Drew Aller was the only quarterback there, and the fact that they stressed him with the 35 team snaps there, and how he performed. I mean, look, it's up to obviously interpretation of who was there. We obviously weren't there, but McCarthy said he spun the ball good and look good, but he said several of these guys look good and were impressive in rookie minicamp, as you would expect. And if anybody didn't look good, he's definitely not going to single out anybody with that. So that was my major takeaway there was, only one quarterback in rookie minicamp. It was Drew Aller. They stressed him. They got a good starting point with him, and along the same lines as well too, just the work with the bottom half of him, focusing on the footwork. And obviously Aller did not play a ton under center, so there was that they got to work on this week. You see a couple of the drills where they seem to be kind of in slow motion, if you will, and I know that caused some consternation there, but it's all about getting that bottom half fixed first and foremost with these guys. And they seem to make that one of their strong, I guess, teaching points or observation points this weekend with Drew Aller. So that was my number one takeaway there.
It sounds like he passed the first test, the first of many, and it doesn't offer any guarantee of passing future tests and ultimately having a successful NFL career. But 2 days in, so far so good for Drew Aller. I also wonder if that's why they cut the Sunday practice, because to have Drew Aller go through it a third day and just him as the only quarterback is an additional stressor. And I think they probably saw all they needed to see from Aller. McCarthy says, quote, to go 35 snaps in a team drill, that's pushing it, but he handled it. We kind of gauged it yesterday, referring to Friday, to see how he'd work through it, and he's a big part of it. And then later on talks about the need to get those reps in and motions, communication, quote, if your quarterback can't handle it, then you don't get to go up to speed and the tempo and the pre-snap that we're able to go. I thought Drew did a hell of a job, end quote. And so kudos to Aller. It is unusual for just one quarterback to be part of your rookie minicamp. I went back and looked at old Packers rookie minicamp rosters, always two quarterbacks there, be it a UDFA first-year guy, draft pick, tryout invite, and just kind of logistically get you through practice. And so one is kind of telling here, but seems like Aller did a good job. On the profile, as you said, it was McCarthy saying, quote, the first thing we did with Drew, no different than we did with Will and Mason. We shoot a profile tape. We're able to do that yesterday, evaluate that, and tried some things today that he responded to very favorably. So he made a very good first impression, end quote. And I posted a clip from that old McCarthy coaching clinic from 2006, even though the quarterback school does not really exist in that form anymore because of CBA rules and restrictions and limited practice time. McCarthy's still doing the same things. And it's a 5-camera shoot in terms of a 5-step drop back for a player. You get one from the front, from behind, from the side, and then 2 from 45-degree angles to see every angle of your mechanics, your footwork, your carriage of the football, your release, your follow through, every aspect of quarterback play. And then McCarthy starts breaking it down and starts adjusting from there. And footwork, as you said, will be an emphasis for Drew Aller. And that's a big thing for Tom Arth, too. I talked to guys that played for Arth last year, and they said footwork was his number one focus in terms of improving quarterback play. You improve footwork, you improve accuracy, you just improve the overall quarterback play. So I know that, as you said, there were some on social media making fun of Aller's footwork. This is the time for it to look a little clunky. It's going to look clunky for a guy who didn't have to do a lot of 5-step and 7-step drops at Penn State from under center. And so it's okay to look not perfect right now. That's the point of rookie minicamp and point of, being taught and getting better. So to me, that's all just internet fodder.
All right, tease your post a little bit more on the McCarthy quarterback school and the cut up that you did there, and maybe what was one of your main takeaways, or what should other people's main takeaways be from that?
I mean, it really was just that McCarthy's still teaching it the same way, just maybe has to do it in a different form. And to be fair, I mean, the profile tape may not have been true to quarterback school. That may have just been part of also normal practice time whenever they would, even back in 2006. And I posted the clip of Alex Smith and his profile tape. So I'm not sure if that happened exactly in the quarterback school, but that's all part of the way and teach process of how McCarthy will build up a quarterback. And it starts with knowing where they're at to begin. What's the starting point? That's filming them from all angles. And then that also can help the coaches see the player, but then the player see himself and see, okay, this is what's happening. Not just being told, okay, your footwork is bad, do X, Y, and Z. It's here's the tape, here's your footwork, here's what's wrong, here's how we want it to look. And so when you get it right, you'll see that on tape as well. So it's just folding it into the new CBA. McCarthy's doing that fine and just well, and that's why Pittsburgh brought him here. At least it's one key reason why McCarthy is Pittsburgh's head coach, to teach and develop quarterback play.
And I take it that they only have around 90 minutes of actual on-field time during these rookie minicamp practices because of CBA rules here. So it sounds like they wanted to maximize that amount of time, specifically with Drew Aller. So that was my number one takeaway, was the lone quarterback and how they spent the time doing what they did with Drew Aller, and then it was stressing him during the team drill there. My number two takeaway was something that I was hoping that would obviously surface this past weekend, and that was, where was Max Ihanichor and Jennings Dunker lining up? And it sounds like Ihanichor was at right tackle, and it sounded like Jennings Dunker was at left guard. Now, do we mark that down in pen moving forward here and say, well, that's the way it's going to be? No, not necessarily, but we have to have at least a starting point with these guys, and it sounded like both those guys were exclusively at those two spots. Now, it's important to remember, you don't have, they were mixed in with obviously tryout players and first year guys and things along, in other words, we'll have to see how this switches up come OTAs. But at the very least, we have a starting point where these two guys lined up. And I know we'll see what the first team and the second team and the third team probably looks like once OTAs get started. I probably wouldn't expect Ihanichor to be the first team right tackle in the very first rep of OTAs, and the same goes for Jennings Dunker at left guard. But we would probably expect those guys, whenever they do filter in with whatever unit, that's probably where those guys are going to be initially, and then we can watch to see if, let's say, Ihanichor goes over to the left side at some point, or maybe will we see guys like Troy Fautano open up OTAs at, let's say, left tackle, just a mix and matching from there. But we needed a starting point at the very least to see where these guys at least look like they might be slotted in initially, and I think we got that with the Ihanichor and Dunker, and we'll see where it goes from there. So that was my second takeaway.
Yeah, that was going to be where I was going to point to next, just getting some firmness in terms of where those guys are initially being slotted. It's where we expected Ihanichor at right tackle, where he played at Arizona State, and Dunker at left guard, which is where Pittsburgh has the biggest need to replace Isaac Seumalo. In terms of who's going to get the initial first team reps during OTAs, we'll see. I'll keep an open mind. I wouldn't be floored if we heard Ihanichor was going to get the first snaps at right tackle, and they're going to get Fautanu some work back at left tackle to begin that process and get him reacclimated to the left side, knowing that's a real possibility that he may open the season as the Steelers starting blindside protector. So I'll just kind of take it for how it comes whenever OTAs begin May 18th, but so far so good. McCarthy had praise for both of those guys. He praised everybody, so it's take some of these things with grains of salt, but said they have the anchor and the look of a Pittsburgh Steelers offensive lineman.
All right. My next one is kind of hyper focused, and it's probably a reach to say it's a takeaway, but it's just something that pouring through all the clips and all that kind of caught my eye, that I figured, of all the little, I mean, we didn't get a lot obviously to come out of this, but Eli Heidenreich going through some of those running back drills where, they try to knock the football out and just everything kind of just seeing him actually go through some of the running back drills. It's not overly shocking because they list him as a running back / wide receiver there, but it just gives kind of a preview, I guess, that and look, how Eli was used as a ball carrier, not a lot of traditional, you know, flat out running back snaps, if you will, where he's lining up in the backfield and has to kind of run in between the tackles. But I think at least we're getting maybe a preview here that as things progress through OTAs and mandatory minicamp and on into training camp, is that we are going to at least to see them take a look at Eli Heidenreich in probably a more traditional running back uh, role, along with the other things that he can offer this team potentially as a wide receiver. How will they flex him out? How will they use him in the passing game? But it just kind of a minor takeaway that I think that moving forward, we are going to get a look at him as a quote unquote kind of true running back and maybe taking traditional handoffs as things progress through the offseason.
I think that's fine. You want to define his position, and he's going to be in a room and have a playbook, and you try to make him both a running back and a receiver and absorb it all. That's heavy, even for a smart guy like Heidenreich, and McCarthy called him bright and adjusting well and picking up a pro-style offense after playing from Navy system. So I think having some, to use the word again, firmness in terms of his position, his role is just good for him because there's so much new he has to absorb, from the offensive structure to just the general switch to the NFL, a new playbook, and you don't want to put too much on his plate, especially for rookie minicamp. But as you said, as a running back, he could still be really versatile. Kenneth Gainwell was very versatile last year. He was a true running back, but he was used in every facet of the offense, split out, running some routes, pass protection, running the ball, obviously, push, and special teams. I mean, he did it all. Heidenreich could maybe try to do something similar. So yeah, it's just good to have some focus and give this guy some direction to begin his career.
All right, that's really all I got. It was great to hear several of these, some of the top draft picks meet the media there, and thought Jennings Dunker was entertaining.
I like him from Bernard. Bernard,
yeah.
just cool customer. Just
Yeah.
I mean, I probably use this too often, but kind of remind me of Pouncey. Like, just very cool out of the gate. Just like, yep, I'm ready to go. I know what to do. We're gonna get after it, and let's do it.
I think that kind of the takeaway from Ihanichor is he's kind of a man of few words right now at this point, and there's nothing wrong with that. His answers were kind of short and more concise. Dunker had the interesting comment about he really loves Pittsburgh, and he guesses that it's not advisable, I guess, to go swimming in the in the Three Rivers there, but he is looking forward to doing some fishing there. He was asked about where he might line up, and obviously the correct answer was there. I'm going to line up wherever they want me to line up. There, Jeremy Bernard seemed very cool and comfortable in front of the camera. Eli Heidenreich as well too. So there's not a lot of real takeaways from there. I think we got to see Drew Aller speak a little bit there and talk about the things that Mike McCarthy put him through this weekend. So not a lot of really takeaways from what was actually said, but this is kind of the first setting for these guys post draft where they're in front of the cameras, and they all came off just fine as far as I could see.
It sounds like 2 quality days of work, and it only means so much, and it won't be something we talk about or remember come September when the season starts, but you're building the foundation, you're setting the framework right now, and that's good to hear, and it seems like everyone got through it healthy too, which is always important, and you don't want any injuries that will hamper development. And yeah, Jennings Dunker, do not swim in the river, you'll come up mulletless. We want to keep that mullet, so there you go. All right, Dave, let's some NFL news here, just kind of abroad.
Did you have any other takeaways that I didn't hit on there that maybe stuck out to you over the weekend?
No, really, the 2 big ones were your 2 initial ones are Drew Aller and being the only quarterback getting reps and some of the profile tape and quarterback school adjacent things that McCarthy talked about, and then just hearing the positions that Honachor and Dunker aligned in. So those were kind of my big things. And then also just like I said on Bernard, just sounding like this is a pro's pro, and that's the book on him coming out of Alabama, that he was Uncle Germ. He was the vet. He was the guy with the right approach. He was the guy that had all the answers to the test. And just hearing from him, you can kind of feel that through his interview.
All right.
The NFL announcing the first Sunday Night Football game, Week 1, will not be the Pittsburgh Steelers. I thought there might be a chance it would be Steelers and Ravens Week 1, but it'll be the Giants and the Cowboys for maybe the 1,000th time on Sunday Night Football. And so we know that's one spot that will be occupied for Pittsburgh Week 1. The NFL schedule release will be announced Thursday, May 14th. So coming up, obviously this thing may get leaked out ahead of time. The NFL will also have a slow drip of select games over these next couple of days. So we'll see if we have more information on the schedule by Wednesday, but usually Thursday throughout the day, even before the official release at 8 p.m., it gets leaked out. 93.7 The Fan often has the full schedule in advance. So we'll leave from our Rooney usually that day too. Usually he gives a schedule reaction. So that is coming up later this week.
All right. Let's see. Some of the other, 49ers are at the Rams in Week 1. Cowboys.
That's the Melbourne game, right?
Yeah, that's the Melbourne game. So that one we know. I think Cowboys at Giants. I think Week 3 Ravens at Cowboys in Rio. So I think we know that. The Pirates are away, right, for the opening weekend there, which sets up obviously the chance for the Steelers to have the what has been rare over the years of opening up at home. What do you like the chances of that happening? And if so, if we are to assume, which is dangerous, that it won't be a AFC North game, there are other home opponents on their schedule will be the Falcons, the Panthers, the Broncos, the Texans, and the Colts. If you were to take a shot in the dark right now, A, do you think they'll open up at home? And B, what is your best guess of who their opponent would be this far out?
Well, the Pirates are at home that first Sunday, right? September 6th is
Are they?
opening weekend, correct? Are my dates right on this? I know it's a little bit later this year than usual. The Pirates are at home against the Angels, 1:35 Sunday, September 6th. And so I imagine Pittsburgh, especially now not having a primetime game on Sunday night, will be on the road because often they don't play at home. The Steelers do if the Pirates are going to be home that day too.
Oh, I thought somebody said the Pirates are on the road.
I mean, somebody can check me. Maybe I'm misinterpreting a date or something.
All right, let me. Okay, what day is what is the date of the Cowboys Giants game? Is that listed for the Sunday night opener?
I can check here just to confirm. I mean, it should be the 6th, but I have not followed.
Okay.
I'm not a big schedule guy, as you guys know. I'm not really into No, it's September 13th. Okay, I'm sorry. That's what I was trying to check myself on, September 13th. So,
Okay.
because it is later this year. So,
And
yes,
the Pirates
are on the road.
Okay, that's what I thought I saw. They have a series with the Cubs in Chicago. So 13th, if that weekend the Pirates are out of town. So I think that opens up the nice possibilities of the Steelers opening up at home.
Okay, then yeah, that very well may be the case, which is rare for Pittsburgh to be at home. I know they got the 49ers game in, what was that, 2023? 2022, whatever year that was, and they got the doors blown off of them, so hopefully better results this time around.
All right, so let me go back then. If we are to assume, which is dangerous, that it won't be a AFC North game, what do you think about Panthers, Falcons, Broncos, Texans, and Colts? And didn't they open up against the Broncos? When did they?
No, that was a Week 2 game.
Okay, that was a Week 2 game. Okay. Are there any ones in particular that you would carve out as being possibility?
I just take it for whatever it is. I just care about how many primetime games there are, how many night games are we going to stay up late for, what's the holiday schedule, what's the bye week. I mean, Texans would be interesting, pick up where the season left off last year.
That's where I would like to go. Take two against that Houston Texans defense there in Week 1 at home for the Steelers. I think that would be quite intriguing there. So that will be my initial dart throw until we learn a little bit more about some of these things leaking here.
You play the schedule however it comes to you, but do you really want to face the Texans to begin your season? That vaunted defense, I like to get a little bit of tape on them. So I don't know if I'd love that, but it certainly would make sense. It would be a storyline.
All right.
All right, Dave, let's get to the, as always, elephant in the room, Aaron Rodgers. There was much confusion on Friday. Would he be in town? Would he visit with the Steelers? Would he sign a contract? Ultimately, we're still not really sure what happened. It does sound like Rodgers has been in Pittsburgh this weekend, remains in Pittsburgh. He is, according to Jerry Dulac, stayed away from the team facility. Conversation has gone through Rodgers' longtime agent, Dave Dunn. And so I really don't know what to make of this. It is pretty strange. Obviously, there is a contract to talk about. And just because the two sides may be talking contract does not necessarily mean there's an impasse or some sort of giant conflict. There could, but there is a contract to be figured out if that time comes. So I don't know. It's even for Rogers' standard in terms of the storyline. This one seems pretty weird. So what's your interpretation of it all, Dave?
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't Jerry Dulac the only one reporting that he was in town this weekend?
Did Graziano say he was in town? There's so much of the same story being told 10 different ways that I've sort of tuned it all out. Let me see what Graziano had to say today. No, he's not saying that he was in town, just says that there was no meeting.
Okay. I don't know.
I mean, obviously the fan reported he'd be in town. That was the
Right.
initial report that kicked all this off. It seemed like Rappaport confirmed that, but I guess no one has seen Aaron Rodgers in Pittsburgh.
Okay. So the big news is really there's no new news because he has not signed. People will play the semantics game here about who was right and who was wrong as far as reporting goes. Will we ever know for sure whether or not Aaron Rodgers was in town? I don't know, but we are where we left off on Friday now at this point here. So we'll have to see if any contract gets signed. Obviously, OTAs get started a week from today, 18th, I believe. So that's the next kind of line in the sand, I guess, if you will, that we're waiting to cross. And that's all I got to say about Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I don't want to beat the dead horse, but if he was in town, why would he not go to the team facility? I mean, I guess there could be just some other reason. Or Ross McCorkle, I wrote up to Cam Hayward, had his birthday. Maybe there was a birthday bash this weekend. I guess that's always possible. Something else may have come up, but it is strange if he was in Pittsburgh to not have any interaction personally with the team.
Yeah, I guess, but we're talking about Aaron Rodgers here, so I don't know. I don't know what way to read it.
Yeah. It never really made sense for him to sign right this moment or this past weekend because it was rookie minicamp. It wasn't like OTAs were right on the horizon. So maybe later this week would make more sense if he is going to be there for OTAs to do it maybe Friday. But again, nobody knows. And the story has gotten strange even by Rodgers standards.
It's gone exactly the way I hoped it wouldn't have gone when we talked
Amen.
earlier in the offseason here. So here we are. Exactly where I was hoping this team wouldn't be, but we wait.
Just last question on this, and then we're going to move on. Is this offseason saga more, less, or the same amount of annoying as last year's Rodgers saga?
I want to say it's a little bit more because I think from the
I think it's
standpoint.
definitely more.
From the standpoint of, okay, he's already been in Pittsburgh now at this point. I think the feeling was coming out of the season was that he was more than likely going to play, and that if he did return, especially after McCarthy was hired, once we crossed that bridge of who the coach was, if it had been any other coach other than Mike McCarthy, maybe there'd be more questions about filling each other out. But those two know each other, and it all seemed like it was heading toward a reunion at some point. And I think most people probably would have bet that it would have been put to bed by now. So yeah, I would say it's more annoying overall. And this was the biggest fear that I had, that it would reach this point on the calendar of him still not getting signed. So yeah, I would say a little bit more annoying.
Yeah, I would agree for this whole recent saga of he's in Pittsburgh or he's not in Pittsburgh. We didn't have that last year. He came to Pittsburgh last year, he signed, and that was that. For being told all offseason by Art Rooney and Omar Khan, it's not going to be like last year, and it being exactly like last year, even worse than last year, and for him already being a Steeler and seemingly having less to figure out, I think this year is far more annoying.
All right.
All right, Dave, let's get off of that. Let's go back to our Keanu Benton discussion that we touched on briefly at the end of Friday's show. I really kind of stuck to not my guns, but just stuck to my thought of a Travis Jones-like contract, a little bit above that $14 million per year. If something is going to get done, you can certainly argue the case that Pittsburgh should let the year play out, make Benton prove himself. There may be incentive for Benton to want to prove himself and have a even better season and earn a boatload of more money and potentially test the market. So those are all factors to consider. But if a deal is going to get done, or what is fair market value for Benton in present circumstance, I think 3 years at $14 million per year, whatever that Travis Jones contract was like, bump it by 5%, makes a lot of sense.
All right, the players that I pulled once again from the comparative standpoint, in no particular order, Tershawn Wharton, defensive tackle, I think Panthers, Travis Jones, Grady Jarrett, Puna Ford, Sebastian Joseph Day, who is now a member of the Steelers, Nathan Shepard, Javon Kinlaw, Dante Stills. If you want to drill that down even further, when you look at total snaps, defensive snaps played, along with the production each one of those guys had, I think you can kind of sort of narrow it down even further to good comparatives for Keanu Benton as being Travis Jones, Grady Jarrett, who's obviously a little bit longer in the tooth, and Javon Kinlaw. Those guys really come close to matching the amount of snaps that Keanu Benton had. They come relatively close in several of these categories as far as production, such as stops, sacks, total tackles, pressures, force, fumbles, those kind of things there. When you look at Tershawn Wharton, his APY right now is a little more than $15 million. Travis Jones is at $13.5 million. Grady Jarrett is $14.5 million, and Javon Kinlaw is $15 million. So I think what I come to the conclusion there is probably a span, at least a target APY, anywhere between, I guess, 13.5 to 15.5 million. I know that's a span of 2 million, but you probably a lot of factors in here. I will be quite surprised if Keanu Benton, at least getting it from the Steelers, would get more than, let's say, 15.5 million. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say that it feels like 15.5 million would be the ceiling for a re-signing for Keanu Benton with the Steelers this offseason. Maybe something like 2 new years on addition to this year. Obviously, no fully guaranteed money past the 2026 year. I would think that the cash on a $15.5 million APY contract would be somewhere in the 16 to 17 million. That feels a little bit rich, even though Keanu Benton has progressed some throughout throughout his time in the NFL. I do almost kind of wonder if, much like the Keanu or the Herbig discussion that we've had about him, if it might not, if it would probably be in the best interest, unless Keanu Benton can push, maybe get closer to, I don't know, 17, 18, 19 million in APY, if it might not be in his best interest to, bet on himself in 2026. Now, when you look at the interior defensive linemen who will be scheduled to be, at this point, to become unrestricted free agents next offseason, let's pull out the list here right now. I don't know why it's not sorting.
And while you do that, I should note I'm not well versed in the 27 draft class, but a couple of draft nicks I follow believe that it could be a really good interior rush class in 27. So that's one other factor. This year was really poor. Next year could be potentially far better.
All right, let me sort out the interior defensive line here. It looks like guys that will either be have void years. In other words, their contracts will void after this year, or they'll be unrestricted free agents. You've got a list of DeForest Buckner, who's up there in age, Deron Payne, who's 30, Leonard Williams, who's 33, Vita Vey, who is already 32. Man, he's already 32. Where's the time gone? Grover Stewart, who's up there in age with the Colts, 34 years old. Devon Hamilton with the Jaguars, his contract voids after this year. He's 30. David Onyemata with the Jets, his voids. He's 35. Ashawn Robinson with the Buccaneers, he's 32. He'll be an unrestricted free agent. I mean, you're getting the sense here that some of the more notable guys who are going to be unrestricted free agent. I mean, Dalvin Tomlinson from the Chargers, he's 33. I think where I'm getting at here is Benton, at least on the surface, for what we look at right now, for some of these guys who are going to be unrestricted free agents and have some marketability with them. Keanu Benton probably stands a chance if he has a kind of above average, or what his average is as far as production right now. If he has slightly above average season in 2026, he could very well end up being one of the prized defensive tackles in a unrestricted free agent defensive tackle class next offseason there. Now this list is going to change quite a bit. Obviously between now and by the time next March rolls around. But I think there's a very strong chance that if Keanu Benton does not push that $17 to $18 million average yearly value, and we all know that the Steelers are not probably going to guarantee more than first year money, I really wonder if it wouldn't be in Keanu Benton's best interest to bet on himself to be a guy that maybe could top the $20 million range quite easily next March.
With a good season, that's possible. I think, pass rushers get paid. I think back to Milton Williams, who had a similar stat line after 2024, 10 quarterback hits, 5 sacks, 7 tackles for a loss. Now, he had a great playoff run. The Super Bowl performance certainly elevated his value, but I forget the exact details. Maybe you can pull it up, Dave, of what the Patriots gave him. But that dude got a Brinks truck backed up to his driveway, and he signed with the Patriots over the Panthers last second. So that could be a comparable for him. And, if you're betting, do you want to keep playing in a 3-4? You can go to a 4-3 scheme where you can play 3 tech and really be a pass rusher and penetrator and not have to eat blocks as often. So there's that factor too, where he may sit there and say the scheme fit. And obviously we'll see how Patrick Graham uses him and what the production looks like. So we'll see what tweaks and modifications get made. But you could certainly see the allure of Benton going to a more even front that may give him a better fit and better role.
Right, and obviously more money potentially as well too. So, would you agree that when it comes to the Steelers specifically, it feels like the ceiling for him might be around $15.5 million APY?
Yeah, it's going to be under Kim Hayward at 17, or thereabouts, wherever he's at. I think 15 and a half is probably the ceiling. So what's the floor? I think probably 13 and a half is the floor, but 14 somewhere around there.
Yeah, look, he's not. I can't imagine he would sign for an APY and lock himself up for at least 2 more years for anything lower than 13.5 million. That doesn't make sense.
So 14 to 15 and a half is kind of the window that you'd be working in with Benton in all likelihood.
Yeah, probably we could shorten it down from I had just said 13.5 to 15.5. I feel comfortable raising the floor a little bit of what he'd be willing to take. So I will say anywhere now between 14 and 15.5 million. I would be shocked if the Steelers signed him for more than 15.5 million APY, at least based on this study here. So, I think that's a comfortable window of if he did sign with the Steelers, what that APY would look like. Now it's just up to him whether or not he's willing to take the deal, but I think we've laid it out enough and looked a little bit far enough in ahead about some of these soon to be unrestricted free agents and the ages and Benton in relation to them. That
Well, let me ask you, Dave. Even knowing that you're right, Benton has agency, he may bet on himself. But if you're Pittsburgh, if you could hypothetically, if Benton and his representation said, "We'll do this deal for $14 million over however many years, structure it however you like," should Pittsburgh do that deal?
Oh, that's a tough
I'm
one.
torn. I'm like, yeah, I'm a little torn on this. I think most fans would say no because there's still, Benton, his run defense could be better, and you want to see it again in terms of the pass rush. But I'm a little torn on this, Dave.
Yeah. How much meat's left on the bone with him in the role that he plays, at least in the Steelers defense now?
There's still more to get, I think, out of Benton. I think his pass rush really was coming on last year. He was putting together more moves, not just the club over to the right, which is still his signature, but it's not the only move he has now. I think you're getting some more variety. I think the run defense could still be better, and I want to see how Patrick Graham is going to use him. So the case to okay, let's do it this way. What is the case to do that deal? We'll do the case for and the case against. Why should fans want that deal under those terms to happen this offseason?
At 13 and a half?
14. We'll call it 14.
Okay. The case for is it feels like you're getting a guy that after this season will have a market value
Mm-hmm.
of probably around at least 5 million more than that. And so you're getting him, it would feel like you're getting him under market value there. Another push would be that, look, you're only going to lock up guaranteed money on him for 2026 only, and then you can kind of play it by ear from that point forward. So even if you had to cut him after 1 year, the cash involved would probably be on a $14 million APY, probably around 16 million. So you would invest 16 million in him for the 2026 season. Obviously, you don't sign guys to 2-year extensions thinking that you're going to have to cut them after 1 year. But I think the main focus overall would be that we're potentially locking up a guy that's got some ceiling left for, let's say, $5 million under market value, and he is ours for 2 years in addition to 2026. And if he becomes an even better player, boy, what a great deal
Yeah.
we have there. That would be probably the plus side of getting him locked up to a $14 million deal. And I can't imagine it being more than 2 years on top of.
You don't think they do another 3 years because he's young? I mean, if you're Pittsburgh, if you're going to do that deal, you want to keep him for as long as you can.
I don't think he'd be willing to do the deal for that long at that price.
Okay. All right, fair.
I think he'd be foolish to do a deal.
A 4-year deal? You think a 4-year deal is foolish? Including this year and then 3 additional years?
At $14 million with only the 2026 money fully guaranteed? Yeah, I think that's foolish for Keanu Benton to do.
Okay, fair. I just, if you're Pittsburgh, at least you would like a longer deal. You'd be looking, I think, longer than just an additional 2 years.
Sure, I would try to sign him to a 4-year because really the years don't matter here. It's the guaranteed that we're talking about. So the longer that I can get him locked up with the hopes that he becomes this outstanding player at a low market deal. Yeah, here's a 4-year extension at $14 million with only 2026 fully guaranteed. Will you sign it?
Yeah, then maybe on a 4-year you'd have to bump it up to 15 million to
Well,
try to compromise a little
million,
bit.
but
No, I know.
even at 15,
I'm giving a different topic.
Yeah, even at 15, he would be, to me, he'd be absolutely foolish to sign such a deal.
Okay, fair enough. And Jones only signed a 3-year extension too, so you want to do the comparison. Then 3 and 3 would make the most amount of sense. But I think you laid out the case really well in terms of what is the incentive to keep Benton, because if you bet on him and he plays really well, then you have a great steal of a contract for the next couple of years.
Right.
If Benton does continue to ascend and builds upon what he did in 2025, if he improves against the run, his pass rush gets there, he gets 7-8 sacks, then you're like, wow, this is a great deal. Because if he has that great season, he's not coming back. You're going to be paying that guy, like you said, 20 plus million, and good night to that. So that's one reason. The other, I think there's 2 other smaller reasons. One, you could be in a scenario next year where Benton walks if you don't sign him now, and Kim Haywood retires. Now,
Right.
Haywood's under contract for 27, but there's no guarantee he's going to play there. He's still playing really well, and it feels maybe more likely than not he'll play that additional year, but you never know if he gets hurt, has a down year. He may sit there and say, you know what, under McCarthy, my body's tired. I gave it a new year with a new guy. I'm out. And so you may be then replacing Benton and Hayward next year, which is
Right.
a tall task. The last reason, this is like, don't take this, don't, for readers, don't run with this and yell at me. This is just cherry on top, like 1% reason why you would do the Benton deal. It may increase the odds of re-signing Nick Herbig if you want to bring back Herbig next offseason because Benton and Herbig are BFFs. And if Benton stays, then Herbig may be even more incentivized to stay in Pittsburgh next year.
All right. The other thing is do they think that maybe Benton can potentially become a guy that's more than be able to play, 800, 900 snaps in more of a Cameron Hayward type role moving forward?
Sure, many people have said they should kick him out to defensive end, where he began his Wisconsin career, and he'd be better at D end than nose tackle. I'm a little skeptical of that. I don't think it's quite that simple. I think his rush moves work really well over centers and guards and won't work as well against some of these big tackles. And still have to anchor against tackles who are bigger and stronger than even centers. So I don't know if that's going to solve all the problems, but that is a potential thought in terms of a long-term vision of Benton. If you want to get that true plugger nose tackle, then you could kick out Benton and have Benton Harmon be your ends, and that future plugging nose tackle will be the man in the middle.
All right. Now that we have kind of set a floor and a ceiling of what we think, at the very least, Benton would potentially re-sign with the Steelers or sign an extension this offseason. What do you think about the likelihood of us as these next several weeks and obviously deeper? And look, they're probably, unfortunately, not going to do guys like Herbig or Benton if they get done at all early in the offseason. You can try, but you would think that if either or both were to resign, it would be closer to the start of the regular season. Second, now that we have laid out kind of what we think is a ceiling and a floor of APY for him to re-sign with the Steelers, where are you on percentage chances of that actually getting done now?
I don't know the exact number, under 50%. Boz and Porter are going to be, I think, first orders of business for Pittsburgh in terms of extensions. So as you said, if you do anything with anybody else, then it's going to be later this summer, probably right before week 1, something like that. Get through the summer healthy. So I don't know, 20% maybe, but I don't have a great number, but I'm not expecting it. I'll put it that way.
All right. I'm not either. Who of the two of Herbig and Benton do you think if only one ended up signing an extension this offseason, who stands to have the better chance, do you think?
Yeah, this one's so tough just because Herbig's situation is so tricky with the big contracts of Watt and Highsmith. So it's hard to see a deal getting done with Herbig, even though he's, more deserving, quote unquote, in terms of there's more confidence in the player than what you've seen from Benton. But I just don't see it getting done with Herbig unless you move Watt or Highsmith. And I just don't see that happening this offseason. So I guess it would have to be Benton.
I would agree. I will say at this stage, after doing the studies and us talking it through with both these players, I will go as far as saying I think there is a 70% chance that neither sign an extension this offseason.
Benton or Herbig?
Right.
Yeah, that seems about right. I think we guessed. I think I went 10%. You went 9%. You prices righted me, I think, the other day on Herbig, and then I'm going 20% on Benton. And are you saying 20% on Benton too? What's your percentage?
Yeah, I think it's definitely higher, a better chance just overall. Even though my heart tells me that neither are going to get done, I would say there's a better chance. So I will say 19% chance.
All right, you're going one under me again. Let's give the case against re-signing Benton. We gave the case for. Let's also then give the case of why Pittsburgh should just let the year play out. What would be the reasons to go that path?
Because he is what he is in the role that he's primarily played in this defense at this point. And even if he was to excel a little bit and and slightly exceed his production, uh, over last season there, is it still worthy enough because he might be limited in snaps and usage and role in the defense, that's a lot of money to basically pay for not a full-time player who might not be the ideal fit in your defense.
Well, I will say on the snap count, he played a ton of snaps last year. I think
Mhm.
he played about 80 or so fewer than Cam Hayward, and so he got on the field a ton. Pittsburgh being in their nickel, defense. I mean, Harmon missing time also
Right.
obviously had an impact, and so what that looks like if Harmon is healthy, that could reduce the snaps. But Hayward would be probably even more managed this year than he has been in past years. And long term, post Hayward, there'll be plenty of snaps for Keanu Benton if the play warrants it. So the case against is just the run defense has not been exactly where you want it to be. And, you just don't know exactly how he fits into this new system and scheme, even though we don't think it's going to change dramatically. When you have a new coaching staff and new DC in, you're not going to commit to this guy a little sight unseen of how he fits into that vision. And you'd hate to go through this year and Patrick Graham say, you know what, this guy just does not fit what I'm looking for. And you've now committed to him big money long term and locked into this contract. So that would be the reason I think against stuff. Let it play out, see how it all fits. But of course, as we said, if he has a good season, you let it play out, he's going to go walk in free agency and get the bag from somebody else.
It feels like it's hard to pay. Let's see, he hits that max ceiling of $15.5 million. It's hard to pay a guy that kind of APY for not being an every down player, or
But
near every down player.
I mean, I think he basically is. I think I'd call him an every down player. I wouldn't put he played
I mean, he's
746 snaps last year.
Yeah, but I mean it's still not. I mean, he's 1388, and there were injuries obviously involved. And there very well could be injuries this year that result in him playing 700, 800 snaps on defense in total this year. But I think if you expect guys like Hayward and Harmon to be healthy enough, and then to get obviously Y.A. Black and whoever, so you got Sebastian Joseph Day on this team now. He's going to take pretty decent chunk of snaps in there as well too. If everybody stayed healthy, I mean, what are the chances of a guy like Benton seeing his average of, let's say, 690 snaps in 2026 during the regular season on defense?
Well, I mean, I was saying every down in the sense of like he can play on rundowns, he can play on pass downs. He's not been exclusive to only one package or one situation or anything like that. I mean, if you're paying Benton all that money, Y.A. Black and Joseph Day aren't going to prevent him from seeing the field. So I understand your point. How do the pieces fit? I think Pittsburgh will treat that as a good problem to have, and also just a longer term outlook of post Hayward, and who knows what Black and Joseph Day will look like and what their roles will be in 27. So I mean, I think there's enough snaps to justify the value. It's also
Okay.
$15 million. It's not like you're paying the guy a Milton Williams contract of $25 million per year where he's got to be out there 80% of the time. So I just wonder how he'll fit into this defense, and that'd be the hesitation. But is your feeling like Herbig, or if a deal does not get done this summer, this guy's walking next year?
Yes.
Okay. That you feel as strongly as you do about Herbig as Benton walking?
Yes.
All right.
If they get to if both those guys get to week one and have not signed extensions, then I think they're both gone.
I feel more strongly that Benton is gone if he does not re-sign or extend before the season than I do Herbig. I still think Herbig, there's a chance he would come back. I think Benton does not get a deal done unless he has a terrible year and his market value gets severely depressed. I think Benton's pretty much gone. All right, we shall see. And then we'll also maybe talk about Darnell Washington and a potential extension for him. I think the math is certainly smaller and easier, probably with Washington for his contract, but that'll be something to maybe discuss for the Wednesday show.
All right, that'll be the next one we dive deeper into. So if you've listened to this right now up until this point, the last several episodes, you've heard us talk about Nick Herbig and his potential market value, at least to the Steelers, the expectation of, or at least the initial speculation of what he might be able to get on an open market next year. And then now that we've done Keanu Benton in the same structure and discussion as well too, what is everybody's thoughts on those two? Are there which of the two do you think is more likely to sign an extension this offseason, and what percentage would you put on both Herbig and Benton being gone next March. So that'll be something to get some reader emails in and some opinions on. At its core, would you like to have potentially both players back, re-signed at the right price? Whatever that right price might be. Yeah, they're great teammates. Overall, Herbig obviously has exceeded expectations, I think, and I think is going to have a future as an edge rusher in the NFL. But just interested to hear, now that we put numbers to it, and looked ahead at the market, unrestricted free agent market next year. I wonder if that shifted anybody's views about whether or not they still are slammed, because a lot of people, I think even some of the beat writers are kind of convinced that that Nick Herbig will get done this offseason, and I feel the other way at this point, and I know you do as well too. And I don't think Benton's as slam dunk as maybe some people think out there.
Yeah, I don't think either are slam dunks, but we'll see. We'll see how negotiations go. And as you said, if they do occur, it'll be a deadline spur action probably later this summer. So I would not expect to hear it soon. You got the rookie contract still to get done. You got Bosch, you got Porter, and then maybe you get to the other guys. So we shall see.
All right.
Dave, just last thing really quickly, wrote a very nerdy article this morning up on the site. I had just a random thought and wanted to go down the rabbit hole of, by round, who was the last Steeler to not make the initial roster. And I'm not counting guys who began on IR in terms of guys that were cut or just did not make the 53 for non-injury reasons. Because I know under Omar Khan, no Steelers draft pick has been cut outright. They begun the year on the 53 or on injured reserve. So I went, first through seventh round, the last cut. Seventh rounder, pretty simple, Chris Oladokin. Sixth round, Quincy Roche. Fifth round was kind of a throwback. Shaq Richardson, the cornerback. Fourth round, Durant Grant. We talked about that a couple podcasts ago. He did not make the initial 53. And then it got really interesting on the third round and above in terms of the last one. And it's a little bit fuzzy to be confident because some of the information is just lacking out there. But third round, I had Ray Sidnor in 1980. It was a big athletic tight end traded to the Eagles before his rookie season commenced. And then you go second and first round, you go back to the 50s. Second round was back Pat Stark. He was drafted into the Army after being drafted by Pittsburgh, so that's why he did not make the team. And then first round was Butch Avenger in 1951. And I mentioned all of this because I went down memory lane. You wrote a really good article on Butch Avenger leading up to the 21 draft, because before the 21 draft, Butch Avenger was the first and only player from Alabama to be drafted in the first round by the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then Harris obviously became the second, and we had Jeremy Bernard in the second round this year. So that was a kind of fun article that I forgot you had written, and it was a good throwback to talk about.
I forgot I had written it as well. So
it's a refresher for both of us.
Yeah. Here's something that I thought about, worth going down maybe a rabbit hole, not necessarily in this podcast here. Draft picks selected third round or earlier that only survived their first rookie season and then were cut outright, not traded. Because what was the situation with Green a couple of years ago? The
Kendrick
center?
Green?
Yeah. What did his first season? Obviously, he was a starter. When was
it was going into his third year. I'm pretty sure that they traded him.
Okay, all right. It was his third year. All right. So even let's even throw in the trade aspect here. Cut or traded after their first season in Pittsburgh of a third round pick or higher.
Yeah, Green was inactive for every game of his sophomore season. And then that summer, they tried him at fullback, and then he got dealt to the Texans at the deadline. So I'd have to go down and look through. I'm trying to think about Willie Reed, Archer. Where did Archer go? He got through his second year. I think he got midway through year 2, and they cut him. I think that was the book on Archer. Anybody else coming to mind, Dave?
No, not off the that's why I felt it was probably worth exploring that. Obviously, this is all centered around Caleb Johnson, right?
Sure.
At this point, because he's only been in Pittsburgh the one season. You got What is Eli Heidenreich going to be? What is Travis Homer? It's rare that you see the Steelers sign a guy in free agency during the offseason and he ultimately not make the 53-man roster, especially if that player was signed in the meat of the free agency process, meaning essentially before the draft. Now it has there was was it Niles Davis a couple of years ago, several years ago, that was signed early in the offseason. And then I think you go back to the Kevin Barlow. So there is at least a little bit of history when it comes to some of these free agents signed early in the offseason that ultimately did not make the 53-man roster. But all of my rabbit hole or what I think would be worth going down is, when is the last time after the first season that a player was cut or traded before week 1 of that player's second season, talking specifically about players drafted 3rd round or higher.
I have some answers for you, Dave,
right.
to these questions, and these would have been great Steelers Depot Jeopardy questions, which I'm now not allowed to use because you're going to get them right here, Dave.
Have I written about it before or no?
No, I don't think you have. Maybe you have, but I didn't find an article on it, if that's what you're asking. So you want to take a guess at in my hastily done research here, of the last Steelers 3rd round pick who did not make it a second to a sophomore season in Pittsburgh?
An actual 3rd rounder? Because didn't they have a 1st round lineman? Was it Stevens?
Jermaine Stevens?
Right.
Yeah, I'm talking literal 3rd round, drafted in the 3rd round, not above, but just
okay.
Dead on 3rd round.
All right.
This is after Jermaine Stevens, so it wouldn't even apply anyway.
All right, give me the answer.
Craig Urbick, the guard out of Wisconsin, who was a big miss. He was didn't appear in a game his rookie year in Pittsburgh, was cut his sophomore year, I think claimed off of waivers, or was signed by Buffalo, ended up having a decent career in the NFL, but not in Pittsburgh.
That was the Mike Wallace draft, right?
That was 2009. Was that the Mike Wallace draft? It was. They were both taken in the 3rd round. Urbick at 79, Wallace at 84. And then Keenan Lewis, also a 3rd round pick that year in 96. So you had a couple 3rd round successes. You had 3 3rd round picks, just like this year. We had Aller and Everett and Dunker. So hopefully Dunker does not become the Craig Urbick of 3rd round selections. And then there was one just a couple years after that, or before that, Dave. It was Willie Reed. No, wait. I'm sorry. Reed made it to 2008. It was the year before. Bruce Davis did not make it through his second year. That undersized edge rusher, one of the few Pittsburgh Steelers outside linebackers who did not work out. Pittsburgh drafted them very well. Bruce Davis, though, was not one of those guys, and he did not have much of an NFL career.
All right. So is Caleb Johnson's not a lock, right?
No, we've established that. I would not call him, like, if he has a bad preseason, he's very much in danger of missing out on the roster. If he has a good preseason, he'll probably make it. But if you talk about, when you're a lock, I always ask the question, okay, if he has a terrible preseason, will he make this team? Like, if Kim Hayward has somehow a terrible preseason, he's making the team. Caleb Johnson has a terrible preseason, he's very much in danger of losing a roster spot.
True or false? Caleb Johnson's got to show something on special teams to help his cause.
I mean, to help his cause, yes, but he's got to really show it as a runner and a receiver and a blocker, because those were his issues last year in terms of being trusted, assuming Rodgers comes back, to block and catch for him, and he did not do those things at any sort of adequate level last year. So if he can do that, a lack of special teams value may not kill his chances.
What's more likely to happen with Caleb Johnson? Cut out right before week 1 or traded before week 1?
I mean, maybe I'm a little biased and hopeful, but you like to think there would be some market to trade a guy with 3 years a cheap rookie contract. But how many times are teams trading for a running back? I mean, it's not exactly a position in demand. Everyone's always got a ton of them. So I'll say traded, but that may be just me being optimistic and hoping to get something out of this guy.
I'll say traded as well too, from where we sit right now. So,
but what's more likely, traded or making the 53? Because you had him off your initial 53. You put Homer on there, right? Which maybe tells you the answer right there.
Wait a minute. Did
I think you had him off. I thought you had him off. Maybe
I thought I had Caleb on. I don't know. Let me see here. I've got the list right here. Hold on. Offense.
I thought it was Homer. And you had Homer making it. Maybe you had Caleb too.
Where are the running backs on this list here? I had Warren, Dowdle, and Homer. Yeah, I had Johnson off. So I don't know if I specified how I thought that would happen, but I did have Johnson off of my initial 53-man roster.
So would your answer to more likely traded or make it be traded?
Traded.
Okay. And his value would be not much. I'm thinking a 6th-round pick, probably for Caleb Johnson.
Or maybe one of those 6-7 swaps or something like
Sure.
that. So
The real upside is he's under contract for 3 years, this year and then 2 more years after that, and that does increase the value a little bit as opposed to an expiring contract.
all right.
All right, Dave, let's get to some reader emails and close out today's show. Reminder, as Dave said, top of the show, live stream 7 p.m. Eastern time tonight. Come hang out with Dave and myself. Just search my name on YouTube.
All right, we'll start with Nathan Casey, offensive tackle strategy. Regardless of Broderick Jones' health, Iheanacho is a future starting tackle for the Steelers. Same with Fautano. So if you agree with that assertion, you just switch Fautano to left tackle now, like he played in college, and let Iheanacho battle Jones for the right tackle spot. Dylan Cook is the perfect swing tackle. If Jones is too hurt to actually compete, no big deal. You still have an awesome swing tackle in Cook. Doing anything else just complicates Iheanacho's development or possibly has Fautano moving to guard, which feels dumb even typing. What are your all thoughts, Nathan? Yeah, look, I think the way you laid it out is definitely conceivable there. So his assertion is regardless of Broderick Jones' health, Iheanacho is a future starting tackle. Same with Fautano. So his viewpoint is you just go ahead and switch Fautano to left tackle now. Let Iheanacho battle either Jones or maybe Dylan Cook for that right spot, and just move on from there. So what do you think about that being, at least on paper, the best plan of action for the Steelers as they move forward into the offseason?
Well, I'm not going to move Broderick Jones back to right tackle. And obviously, we know he's got to be healthy first. And that's the first step before we talk about his role and where he's playing. But he's not going back to right tackle. I think you do what they did with Jones, kind of his first and second year, where Fautani will kind of flip flop a bit between left and right tackle while they work with Iheanacho and see if he's ready to start week 1. Because you don't want Fautani to get all reps at left tackle this summer. And then they decide Iheanacho is not ready to start. And then Fautani goes back to right tackle. I guess he's saying Dylan Cook would be the right tackle in that scenario, but that just seems sort of messy when Cook was your left tackle last year and Fautani's done well at right tackle. So there's so many combinations that this thing could go, and so I'm not going to get too bogged down in what it looks like. I mean, I could give you a projection. I mean, my projection right now, like, let's do this, Dave. What is even though it's way too early and there's so much to learn, what is your week 1 projection of how this front 5 will look? Do you want me to give my answer, and then you can kind of bounce off if you disagree with any of the
Yeah, go ahead.
placements?
What's your initial look here?
I'll go Fautanu left tackle. I'll go Dunker at left guard. Frazier, of course, at center. McCormick right guard, and I'll see Iheanacho starts week 1 right tackle.
I could definitely see a path of that, depending on how if Iheanacho looks like he's got some upside and can be, I want to see his run blocking hopefully develop there. But especially if Broderick Jones is not ready to go and not ready to fight for anything by the time training camp gets underway, I think that likens the probability. But I mean, there are different. Look, okay. I agree with what you said. My arm can easily be twisted into that being the case. But what if OTAs open up with Fautano at right tackle and whatever other combination you want to throw into that thing? But what if snap number 1 at OTAs winds up being Fautano at right tackle?
I guess my question on your question is, what does snap number 2 look like? Is it Fautanu getting all the right tackle reps? Are they going to rotate in Iheanacho and flip Fautanu to the left side? I mean, it was so much mixing and matching possible. So just because Fautanu gets snap number 1 at right tackle, which is possible to open up OTAs, is not going to deter me or think that Iheanacho has no chance or a slim chance to start week 1.
All right, and look, you're going to have, we'll see how the left guard But let's say Jennings Dunker ends up being the odds-on favorite after OTAs to be the starting left guard moving forward. Don't you want Fautano and Dunker working together as much as possible on that left side moving forward into the offseason?
Yes, but if Heidenreich's not ready, he's not ready, and I can't make the decision to put Fautano at left tackle just for the benefit of Dunker if Heidenreich's not ready to play, his position. So it's the best five and the guys who are most ready to start. I mean, if it's Dylan Cook at left tackle, it's somebody who's been in the league for a decent amount of time. It'll be the same for Broderick Jones if he's healthy enough to start. So, and you got Frazier on your right side, which is a now third-year guy with a ton of experience under his belt. So I think Dunker will be okay.
From a future standpoint and as far as a development and continuity standpoint goes, I think as a Steeler fan, you should be rooting for your starting five in week one to be Fautano, Dunker, Frazier, McCormick, and Ianachor, right?
Sure. I mean, that means that they're playing well enough to get the starting nod and beating out some of the vets, which is a positive thing, it would appear. And that hopefully those guys can be the five for a long time. You can have something similar to the old days, Pouncey and DeCastro and Gilbert and Foster, where those guys stayed together for years and years. You had rare continuity and rare chemistry, and that certainly paid dividends. So you would agree with my five? Would that be your five if you had to guess it right now?
Yeah. Yeah, especially, with what we know and don't know about Broderick Jones at this point, and what we do know about Dylan Cook and his play at left tackle so far, and what we think we know about the left guard situation going into this part of the offseason. Yeah.
To continue my Price is Right comparison and invoking the game, there's the one game where they put up all the prizes and the prices of them, and you have to guess which one is wrong. And if you guess it wrong, then you win. If I told you of that starting five we just went over, one of them is wrong, which one is the wrong answer? No pressure. You're just playing for Showcase Showdown here.
All right. So in other words, of the five left to right that you pointed out, has the
Yeah.
probability.
Yeah,
I would say the probability would probably be Iheanacho at right tackle just not being ready for week one.
I'll say Dunker. Just something telling me Heidenreich is going to be the guy. I mean, McCarthy called him plug and play 2 weeks ago, and I think they're going to get these guys in the lineup, and first round pick's going to play. So I'll say that if one is wrong, it'll actually be Dunker, and you'll have Anderson or Hoffman get the nod.
Okay. All right.
All right. I know we kind of strayed away from the email, and so appreciate the email, but just we get on a rabbit hole sometime.
All right, Brett Nile wants to talk about consensus boards. You were discussing why consensus board might matter, and have a potential example. There's an NFL film about the 1974 draft, and part of that film is how Chuck Noll wanted to draft John Stallworth with the first-round pick. The scouting department, Bill Nunn in particular, told him if they didn't draft Swan in the first round, they wouldn't get him. They said that since Stallworth went to a small HBC school, they could get him later. They ultimately took Lynn Swan in the first, Jack Lambert in the second. The team did not have a third-round pick that year, and Stallworth in the fourth round, and then Mike Webster in the fifth, netting 4 Hall of Famers. He says, now you could have drafted Stallworth in the first round, and at the end of the day, you could thump your chest and say you got a Hall of Famer, but it would have cost you Lynn Swan. And looking back, you might never realize it. If you took Stallworth in the second, it would have cost you Jack Lambert. If you traded up in the third, it likely cost you Mike Webster. Do you win 4 Super Bowls without any of those 3? The point is, it's not just whether you got a good player or how good the player you got was. It's also about what you passed up to take them. There's an opportunity cost for taking a player significantly higher than the consensus. See the example above for the extreme case. He says, thank God for Bill Nunn. All I will say is, man, we are in 2026, and we're trying to compare things to a 1974 draft. I think that's a little bit of a reach there. I understand the general thought here overall, but I mean, I don't know how you can compare consensus board to a 1974 example.
Yeah, it's much different in terms of information, but I get the point. I think you just made that as one clear, well-known, illustrative point about if the opportunity cost. I think he just used that as a tangible example of a broader point. So I understand the thought. Yeah, and that's always the balance of you take this guy earlier, could you have gotten him later? And do you miss out on a player that wouldn't be there later? I mean, that's always the dance of the draft. And these things are always clear with the benefit of hindsight. I mean, if they'd made those moves in 74 and they didn't take Webster, well, you're not really missing Mike Webster because you never had Mike Webster in the first place. And so yeah, it's hard to put that toothpaste back in the tube when you're thinking about it in hindsight. So I get the point. It's fair. It's all part of that nuanced draft discussion of, is it worth taking get this guy, 2 rounds earlier than what conventional wisdom would say? Because you really like this guy. Could you get him later? Can you have your cake and eat it too and get the other guy and get your guy that you want later? I mean, you could spend hours talking about it, and teams do, and it's all good discussion, but it's why the draft is an art, not a science. There's no right or wrong answer. There's no do X, Y, and Z, and you're going to have a great draft. It's all shades of gray, and that's the nuance and why drafting is just so dang hard.
Yep, absolutely. All right, Larry Griffith writes in, Riley Nowakowski position projection. He says, I'm honestly aggravated that people keep calling Riley Nowakowski only a fullback simply because that's how the Steelers announced the pick. That feels intellectually incongruent to me. Everyone was comfortable calling Connor Hayward a tight end, even though Riley actually has better measurables in several key areas. And he goes on to list all the measurables and the times of Hayward and Nowakowski. He goes on, yet with Riley, people want to label him strictly as a fullback and then still project another third tight end onto the roster. He says that makes no sense to me. If Connor could be viewed as the third tight end despite being smaller and lighter, then Riley absolutely should be viewed as a hybrid tight end, H-back, fullback who can fill both roles. Riley is bigger, faster in the 40, more explosive vertically, and has enough athletic ability to be far more than a traditional downhill fullback. His value is not just replacing a fullback spot, it's providing roster flexibility by covering both tight end 3 and fullback responsibilities. People need to get past the draft day label and evaluate the actual player and skill set. Calling Connor a tight end while calling Riley only a fullback is inconsistent. Riley should be viewed as a modern hybrid offensive piece, not boxed into a single position label. What do you think? Please address how this should impact projecting the 53-man roster. I mean, he's not going to get any pushback from me, and I don't think you as well too. We have already, although we haven't had a lot of talk about Nowakowski overall, I think we both come to the point that knowing that this is a guy that can really help you in the passing game. You can line him up as H-back, fullback, split him out into the line of scrimmage type things. I don't know, maybe this is a push shove back to what did PFF didn't PFF put something like they worry about Nowakowski as a tight end or something like that. A couple of them old PFF guys and all. Look, I think on my 53-man roster, I had this team only keeping 2 traditional tight ends in Freiermuth and Darnell Washington, and I have Nowakowski really in more of a tight end / fullback role than I do a fullback tight end role, and that helped me save a roster spot. And I think at some point I also mentioned about Spencer Anderson and how if you really got into a situation where you wanted a bigger body on the end of the line of scrimmage, we saw the kind of the versatility that Spencer Anderson had last year. You brought up a couple of times since Dunker was, if Dunker doesn't win the left guard spot or any spot on the offensive line, could we initially see him cut his teeth as that extra player? So I don't think you can totally discount that. So, I mean, I don't know if Larry's directing this at you and me or me and you or some of the other fan postings or thoughts or old PFF guys or what. But I mean, I'm certainly not pushing back to what Larry said, that I think that having a guy in Nowakowski that, yeah, you should not pigeonhole this guy as just a fullback, because I think and I hope that he's going to show enough versatility as tight end, fullback, H-back, and all that it's going to keep you from having a more traditional third tight end on this roster.
Yeah, I mean, I think the overall point is that
You
Nowakowski's.
you kept McKee, didn't you? You have more like three tight
Mhm.
ends on your initial 53, right?
I did, and I still stand by that. Now, Lake McCree was kind of a placeholder because it's kind of a mess at tight end behind the top two, and then they signed Jaheim Bell, and we'll see if Bell could capture a roster spot, even though he's a little H-back like Nowakowski. So yeah, we talked about Nowakowski's versatility, that he's not just a fullback, but the team called him a fullback, and Mike McCarthy talked about bringing back the two-back offense, the West Coast roots, and I would make the point of calling a Hayward a tight end and Nowakowski a fullback, and we'll see exactly how it looks, in training camp, but Hayward worked with the tight ends in practice and training camp. He worked with the tight ends in tight end drills and meetings. He was with Alfredo Roberts and Darnell Washington and Pat Frymuth and the tight ends. If Nowakowski's going to be coached by Ramon Chinyoung, who came out to this press conference and worked with the running backs in drills, then he's a fullback. And that's why we're going to call him a fullback and call Hayward a tight end, even though the reader's right. Nowakowski is bigger, stronger, and I would say a better blocker. So is Nowakowski going to be used versatility? Is his versatility going to be utilized? Yes. But in terms of labels, why we're calling him a fullback and a tight end, that would be the difference. And I still would sit there and say that, yes, you could sit there and say Nowakowski may play some tight end. He's not being coached by the tight ends coach. Is he truly a tight end? And if you only keep Nowakowski to be your third tight end and your fullback, it may be limiting if there's injuries on game day. If you lose a tight end, Darnell or Frymuth, you can't run 22 personnel, or at least not as easily. Maybe you put in an offensive lineman like Spencer Anderson, but is McCarthy repping that in practice? Are they putting that in the playbook? If it's not there, you may not do that on game day. So it's also limiting potentially if injuries occur where you can't run some of your personnel packages. So we'll see. We'll see how it looks in OTAs and certainly in training camp in the preseason. You're going to see Nowakowski get moved around. It's not going to be just backfield action from him. We call him a fullback because they called him a fullback. And if he's in the meeting rooms with the running backs, then he's a fullback and not a tight end.
All right. At the very least, Larry, you've got me in your corner here. My hope is that they get a situation where Nowakowski is working in more than just the running back room, and that he ends up that ends up being a key 53-man roster spot that helps open up maybe a spot for, I don't know, Heidenreich. Let's see who else might it open up a roster spot for. Who was off of your offensive grouping, being as how you kept a third tight end, and you had Heidenreich not making it? Was that correct?
Correct. I did, and no one
Okay.
liked that answer, but I had him
Right.
off my 53.
Well, I had Heidenreich making it because, after all, he is the greatest seventh round pick of all time, according to
And
our
let's put that in context because a lot of people got mad at me on the internet. Rooney obviously was making that as a reference to the moment and not as the greatest player. And I thought it was all kind of understood, and people are accusing us of clickbait. So Rooney was saying that in terms of the pageantry of the moment, not that he's the best seventh round pick ever. So just to be clear.
All right, Larry, I see where you're coming from. Look, we got a lot of off season left to kind of discuss this and how the 50, as I always like to say and will continue to say, these things have a funny way of just working themselves out organically, albeit injuries or what have you here. But I definitely see the pushback for Larry of at least at this point of the off season of saying, don't pigeonhole Riley Nowakowski as just a fullback.
But whenever you refer to him, Dave, you're going to say fullback. Is that probably how you're going to address him when you talk about him in terms of his position?
Until I have a reason not to, I'm considering him a fullback / tight end.
Okay. I mean, just like whenever if you hear me say fullback Riley Nowakowski, doesn't mean that he's only a fullback. Just in the way what if I say that Jalen Ramsey's a safety doesn't mean that he can't play nickel corner or
Okay.
whatever the case is. I mean, we're just calling it a label just to put the label on it. It doesn't always define him as that's his only role. He's going to be moved around. They're going to lean on versatility. So there's no question about that.
Well, none of our listeners and readers get caught up in semantics and all like that. But look, I get where Larry's coming from here.
Yeah, I understand that he's going to be in HB. Call him an H-back then. I mean, which kind of encompasses all of the above on that. If that's better suited for him. So I'm excited to see how he gets used. Though I think a fullback could certainly have some value in that traditional two-back look that Pittsburgh's not had in quite some time.
All right, buddy, Deshaun Campbell. This will be the last one. It says, "Sup, guys? I just want to know Can you guys see the Steelers giving Aaron Rodgers either a 2-year deal or playing the same waiting game with him next year? Mark my words, if the Steelers select a quarterback in the 2027 draft, it will not be in the first round. So Deshaun's already going out there and saying if the Steelers select a quarterback in the 2027 class, it will not be a first round quarterback. And the other part of his question in this is, can you see the Steelers giving Rodgers a 2-year deal or playing the same waiting game with him next year? All right. If the Steelers signed somehow, if Aaron Rodgers winds up signing and this deal ends up being more than 1 year in length, I have a hard time imagining the second or third or fourth or however many years it goes past the first not being a void year. First and foremost,
Sure.
I find it hard to imagine that Aaron Rodgers would even lock himself up into a non-void second, third, fourth, whatever year, because I just he doesn't know the only way I think that Aaron Rodgers signs a multi-year deal is if it voids after 2026. And that would be for cap purposes to get his cap number down for 2026. I will be stunned if Aaron Rodgers' contract does not include a void year if it is a multi-year deal.
100% agree.
All right, so I think that answers that. The only way we could see a multi-year deal with Rodgers, and no, I don't think. I think after 2 years, if let's say Rodgers ends up signing just a 1-year deal, I don't think that it would. I can't imagine what this fan base will be like if we're going through this next year of they want Aaron Rodgers back. Is there Aaron might want to play? I can't fathom that. But here we are doing it a second year in a row. So basically, Deshaun, what I'm telling you is I think this is it for Aaron Rodgers, period, if indeed he does sign with anybody in 2026. And if the contract's 2 years, it's going to have a void year in it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a 1-year deal. That's my expectation of how the contract will look should it get signed.
All right, I lied. One more. Charles Hubbard writes in about Mason McCormick. This is a good topic. Maybe I've missed this, but with all the potential shakeup on the offensive line, why is Mason McCormick's name not being mentioned moving over to left guard where he played in college? That way Dunker is shifting inside, but same side. I'm wondering if we go into the season with Fautano, McCormick, Frazier, Dunker, and Ianachor. I mean, Alex and I have at least thrown around. It's not like we've totally avoided it, especially prior to the draft with McCormick. Because, McCormick, 98% of his snaps probably even higher than that, 99% of his snaps in college came at the left guard spot. But this is a guy now that obviously has shown that he can play the right guard spot. And then Dunker, and at least with the initial look of Dunker at left guard, he does lay out. He's wondering if you go into the season with Fautano, McCormick, Frazier, Dunker, and Ianachor left to right. The only pushback that I would put on that is, I get that Dunker would be going only from right tackle to right guard, but then you're setting yourself up with two newbies on the right side in both Dunker and Ianachor. And is that something that you really want to do if Dunker shows that he can, give you the same, if not better, production at left guard there? So I get I guess I get McCormick to left guard as being something that at least is plausible. But at this point, it feels, especially since Dunker's entered the picture here, it feels a lot less likely.
Yeah, I would put it as unlikely, not impossible. We have mentioned that a time or two before to keep Fautanu and McCormick, and really even Frazier in effect, together, just flipping sides. But you guys know my stance. Moving a bunch of guys to fit one guy is not my preference. You're already moving Fautanu over, so... I just does not my preference, and it does not seem like the initial plan if Dunker's getting some left guard work here early on.
Right. That's kind of where I'm at on it right now. it's plausible, especially you don't know what injuries are going to take place and all like that. But it just feels a lot less likely and a little more messy at this point right now with moving McCormick to left guard, no matter how the rest of the offensive line shakes out.
Yep, I agree.
All right, we got through some reader emails there. Look, I've got some. My wife wants me to make sure I got a couple of books, copies of books laying around in here. I think the James Conner book. Maybe I have a Ryan Shazier book, Dick LeBeau book, and all as well too. Can you think of some way for us to start giving some sort of contest or something, maybe via email to listeners only, of ways of giving away a book? What's a good way to give away a couple of books this week?
I'll have to think about that. I'm not quite sure. Maybe some sort of contest, or I don't know, the fourth emailer after the show gets the book, something like that. I'm not sure. We'll figure it out.
All right, let's at least open it up for one book giveaway. I don't know which one it will end up being here, but we'll do this. What was the single biggest mistake Alex and I each made during the pre-draft process this year? And we'll take our favorite answer of all that are given via email. What is the single worst mistake Alex and I each made during the pre-draft process? We'll at least get it started that way until maybe we can come up with it. And who knows, maybe we'll give away 2 or 3 books here. I have to look and see how many got lying around here. But let's open it up to theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. And whoever puts the answer in before the Wednesday show, we'll read a couple of the answers and we'll figure out some sort of winner, at least one winner from that. How about that, Alex?
All right, roast us and win a book. It's not a bad deal.
Absolutely. Everybody wins that way except us. All right. Until the Wednesday show, you can follow me on Twitter /X at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the ad-free button. Follow the directions that way. We'll be back on Wednesday. I imagine maybe we'll be talking about a few more draft picks, or at least one more draft pick being signed. We'll see if any of these tryout players get inked to the deal. We'll obviously wait to see what happens with Aaron Rodgers, if anything happens there. But whatever does happen, we'll talk about it on Wednesday. And then obviously, as Alex mentioned a few times, we've got the live stream coming up later on tonight, 7 Eastern, on the Alex Kozora YouTube channel. We'll be live streaming for an hour, taking most of, if not all of, the questions that you have. So until later tonight, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.